Hey everybody, it's Joe and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be using our Ninja Foodi Power Blender Ultimate System to make pepperoni pizza
from scratch.
So you ready? Let's get into this. Here's all the ingredients we're going to be using. For the crust, we need all-purpose flour, active dry yeast, a little bit of warm water. You want this to be hot tap water at about 105 degrees, a little bit of monk fruit sweetener, some salt, and a little bit of olive oil. For our marinara sauce, we need tomatoes, tomato paste, a little bit more olive oil, some minced garlic, and our herb combination. This is a combination of salt, pepper, oregano, dried chopped onions, and a tiny bit of crushed red pepper. For our toppings, we're gonna need a little bit of mozzarella cheese and pepperoni, some olive oil for brushing the crust, and our herb combination to go on the top. This is gonna be a little bit of granulated garlic, basil, oregano, parsley, and black pepper. If you don't have a Ninja Foodi Power Blender Ultimate System or even the Ninja Foodi Power Blender, that's okay, you can still make this recipe. It just means you're gonna have to do a few things by hand. No problem, it just means it's gonna take a little bit longer. That being said, let's get started. First, we're gonna go ahead and make the dough because it has to set. So first things first, we gotta put in our dough blade. So pull out your very, very sharp blades and get them out of the way. Throw in your dough blade, and into your blender is gonna go your active dry yeast, your monk fruit sweetener, and your warm water. At this point, you wanna let this sit just like this for about 5 minutes. Once that 5 minutes passed, we can start adding in our other ingredients. So we've got a little bit of salt, our all-purpose flour, and a little bit of olive oil. Once you have all that in, lid goes back on, turn on your blender, and you're gonna wanna set the dial for dough. Then all you gotta do is start it up. If you wanna try out this recipe, all the ingredients and measurements are down in the description of the video, along with the calorie count, the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fat. Once that's done, we'll go ahead and pull this out, throw a little all-purpose flour on a cutting board, and you're gonna wanna knead this dough for about 2 minutes. Okay, once you've finished that, you're gonna take a medium-sized mixing bowl, toss in a tiny bit of oil here, and you're gonna grease this up really nice. Throw in your ball of dough, and then you're gonna wanna cover this in plastic and let it sit for about 45 minutes, just so it has a chance to rise. Okay, now to prepare our sauce, make sure you start with a nice sharp knife, especially when you're working with tomatoes. And on these, we wanna go ahead and cut off the portion where all the stems come out here. Next, you wanna dice these up. Throw them into your blender. The best way to dice tomatoes would be not to cut through the skin, but to turn it over and cut through the flesh. Otherwise, you tend to sort of crush the tomato. In this case, that hard skin is the last thing the knife touches. Much easier for you this way. You don't really have to cut these up that much since they're going into the blender, but I like to dice them down a little bit just to kind of cut the work down as much as possible. And I don't plan to blend for very long, because I like the sauce to be a little bit more on the chunky side. If you want a smoother sauce though, you're gonna blend for a little bit longer. Okay, now that we got those chopped, I'll go ahead and finish loading my blender. In my case, I wanna be a little bit delicate with this, so I'm only gonna be using my pulse button. And also be sure that you have your regular blades back in here again. And that's about all she wrote. Now we can start cooking our sauce. Okay, we're gonna wanna start this on about a medium-high for the heat. Throw in our tomatoes first, and our oil, the minced garlic, our herb combination, and our tomato paste. When you put the paste in there, make sure you mix that in really good to get it broken up and dispersed evenly there. You'll wanna stir this quite a bit. Once this starts to bubble, then we're gonna wanna reduce the heat down to about a low or medium low and give it a good bit of time here for all the flavors to combine together a little bit. If you time everything just right, you should have this sauce reduced down just about the same time as your dough gets done resting. So when this gets to a nice thick consistency and everything seems to be holding together really well, you can go ahead and pull this off the heat and we can roll out our pizza dough. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get our mozzarella cheese and pepperoni ready. I've already prepared the blender, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you what we did. If you just have a regular food processor, you can do that too, or you can use a grater if you have that as well. We're gonna go ahead and throw in our spindle, and we're gonna do our pepperoni first. So you're gonna want to put the slicing blade in, which is paired with the shredder. So you want the slicer here facing up. Put that in there. Then you're gonna put your processor top on here. And then let's go ahead and slice up this pepperoni. So you turn that on, It's gonna be on disc mode already, which you can't change because we got the discs in there. Put in the pepperoni and we'll just go ahead and start this up. And it's that simple. Now we just gotta clear this out and get it ready for our mozzarella cheese. Same spindle in, except this time we're gonna turn this over and we want the shredder blades up. And we'll go ahead and crank these out. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Easy peasy. At this point, we should have all of our ingredients prepped already, so we can go ahead and preheat our oven for 550 degrees. Real pizza ovens are usually upwards of 800 degrees, but in our case, we're cooking this at home and probably the maximum temperature you're gonna get is 550 degrees. That's perfectly fine. It just means that we don't quite get the same crispness that we would get from a pizza oven in a restaurant. Okay, now our dough should be just about ready. And as you can see, it rose up really nice. And now we're gonna roll it out. So again, take a little bit of all-purpose flour, put that out on your cutting board or actually even your countertop if you want to do it that way. We've got our pizza dough here. And now we can go ahead and roll this out. You're going to want to use quite a bit of flour on this just to make sure it doesn't stick to your rolling pin. And then you're going to want to go ahead and just sort of roll this thing out as best you can here. And as evenly as you possibly can. You can do that whole pizza shop tossing the dough in the air kind of thing. But if I do that, I'm gonna have a bunch of dough on the floor and no pizza. So in my case, we're just gonna kind of skip that. Just gonna wanna roll this out as evenly as you can and try to get it into a circular shape or close to it. In my case, I'm gonna keep rolling it out until I get it to the size of my 12-inch pizza tin here. As you can see, my cutting board is not quite big enough to do this, so I'm just gonna actually do this on the countertop. There we go, that's much better. Just be sure that you have a clean countertop when you're doing this, obviously. I like to roll from the middle and go out. That way I'm sure that we're keeping it nice and even. You don't need to roll it out as thin as I am, but I'm doing a thin crust. If you use a smaller pan, it'll be thicker. Okay, now that I got this the thickness that I want, I can go ahead and throw it on my pan. And I'm just gonna go ahead and center this, and then I can just kind of roll the edges up to form the edge of my crust. Okay, now we're just gonna brush this whole thing with a little bit of oil, and we can start putting our toppings on. First, we're gonna throw on our sauce. How much sauce you use is totally up to you, but I like a pretty saucy pizza. Next goes the cheese. You wanna try to keep that as evenly as you can on there. You don't want big globs of cheese in concentrated areas. You want this to look nice when you get done with this too. I like a lot of cheese. This is actually quite a bit going on here, but why the heck not? Then we have our herb combination. And then we can start throwing on our pepperoni. And once your oven's ready, in with the pizza. That should take about 10 minutes or so, depending on how hot you're running your oven and how thick you've made your crust. Just remember to check on it often. You want those pepperonis to be cooked, you want that cheese to be melted and bubbling, and you want to have that crust golden brown. Okay, and our pizza's been about 12 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and check on this. And that is looking pretty darn good. So our pizza's all ready. All that's left to do now is slice this up. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about Joe's Phenomenal, you can watch a couple more videos, or you can check us out online at joesphenomenal.com. I thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to watch this video. It really means a lot to me, and I hope to see you again really soon. So until next time, once again, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.